What's going on, everybody? We're back with another episode of Pickin 6. We have a very special episode tonight as we are joined by John Ryan, professional sports bettor, handicapper from Wager Talk and Sports Memo and gambling.com. Did I get all those?
Yep, and predictedplaybook.com.
Okay, there we go. Well, welcome, John. We're happy to have you. I'm new to our channel, so if you want to introduce yourself to everybody out there.
Well, I'm John Ryan. I focus on analytical research, but I also do the fundamentals with it because the analytics, in my opinion, are worthless unless the fundamentals support it. But I do all the sports and just really glad to be on your show.
Yeah, absolutely, John. We're happy to have you. And we have a regular face right here. Connor, how we feeling?
Feeling good. Happy to be back in the mix after a couple-week hiatus, but ready to jump into things.
Hey, listen, we aren't professionals like John, so we still have day jobs. It's fine. But we're here. We're here to have some fun. So let's jump right into it. We're going to start college first, NFL at the end. We're going to start right here. TCU minus 9.5 against Texas Tech. I believe that game is at Fort Worth. I'm going to kick this over to John first. John, how do you feel? Do you have any thoughts about this game right here?
Well, I think TCU is going to have a bit of a bug, da-da-da-da-da, you know what I'm saying? Because they were kind of, disrespected in this college football playoff. And I will say this, the polls are meaningless. They really don't offer any intelligence towards finding a good betting opportunity. Last year, if you took the final poll of the AP poll after the season was over, there was 13 teams of the 25 listed on that poll that were not on the preseason poll. So most notably, we have Tennessee, who has come out of oblivion, basically, to be the number one ranked team in the country. But I think this TCU Horned Frogs unit is a serious contender, and I wouldn't be surprised to see them in the Final Four. So I expect them to really play extraordinarily well, and I think they cover this number.
Yeah. Connor, do you have any thoughts here? Because I have one thought, might not be the spread, but Connor, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm thinking TCU gets it done. Their offense has been really running on all cylinders here. Last week, Kendre Miller had 12 carries, 120 yards, and a touchdown. Also, Tay Barber, Savion Williams with fire games. So overall, I think with the offense running on all cylinders and certainly a chance to, as John said, to make it to be one of those Final Four teams in college football. And potentially they may have to win out in the Big 12 when the Big 12 chip. But that being said, I think they have, I don't want to say pressure, but the potential for them to make it to the playoff. I think all things considered, I think they get the job done here and keep things rolling.
Yeah, I think they've kind of separated themselves. If there's going to be a representative from the Big 12 in the college football playoff, it's most likely going to be these guys. I'm looking possibly, I know this is a high number, and I know John has different feelings about the over-under betting situations in various games, but I like the over here only because Texas Tech 6-2 for the over on the season, TCU same way. Both have covered pretty high numbers in their season, 61, 66, 56 in the most recent couple games for Texas Tech. TCU went over 69 points last week when they went for West Virginia. It's definitely possible. We from my younger days with Geno Smith playing at West Virginia, all the Big 12 offenses, not a lot of defense, but plenty of offense. 69, these high totals are not that out of the question for a Big 12 matchup, especially like this one. That's my personal opinion. I think I might take the over here. And I think that TCU could definitely cover. Texas Tech hasn't shown me anything. 4-4 on the season. They are 4-4 on the spread, 1-2 away, and 3-2 as the underdog against the spread on the season. That's how I feel.
I just added a little tidbit here. If you look at the total of 69-70, it basically implies that TCU is going to score 41 points in the game.
Mm-hmm.
If you think that that's possible, or even if they score 31 or more, TCU covers the spread at an extraordinarily high rate when they score 31 or more points. In fact, I believe it's 81% over the last 5 seasons. So if you believe that Texas Tech defense can somehow keep them at 30 or less, then maybe you don't want to touch TCU. But I don't see how Texas Tech will keep them under 31, which then enhances the probability that they cover the spread.
Yeah, it's more like one of those situations where like when you see a total situation, like I think sometimes you're almost leaning on one of the teams to kind of get you up there. You know what I mean? Like you see this large gap. Like obviously you have a 9.5 point spread. So I agree. If you think TCU is going to cover, I feel like you're also leaning the spread because you want more points on the board.
Yep, I
Yeah. So
agree.
yeah, my take is here is I think that we also could see this number come down if anything. Um, Possibly, I don't know. I mean, it's a Big 12 game, so it might never come down. But we could see. I don't know if there's any in-game betting opportunities because these teams score early and often, as opposed to, other conference matchups. I don't know.
Well, that's a great point because if they do score early and often in that first quarter, this total in game could go into the mid to upper 80s.
Yeah, easily.
Yeah, and that's
Yeah,
where I love doing that. And if somebody said to me right now I could get 87 and a half on this game, I would put pizza money
yeah.
on.
Pizza money. That's your favorite term. Yeah. I'm gonna take the over here. I mean, I will definitely lean TCU, but my official pick here is the over. I think John likes what TCU minus 9.5, and Connor, where do you sit?
TCU to cover here.
Yeah, I like that too. Moving right along to quite possibly the exact opposite of what we just talked about. Purdue minus 4.5 versus Iowa over under 41.5. Now, so Connor and I were the only ones doing this show here last year, and it's first year. And we were massive, massive fans of the Big Ten under. Now, that 41.5 is a good number. It's not in that, you see, like, just like we see Big 12 totals get into the 70s, sometimes you'll see Big 10 totals come down into the 30s, for that over under. Luckily, it's still above 40 here, so it's not steering me away too much. I off the jump like the under and possibly Purdue to cover. Connor, do you have any thoughts here?
Yeah, I think it comes down to Iowa's inability to put up like meaningful points or just any points whatsoever. Purdue comes in averaging 444.6 yards per game, which puts them at 32nd in the country. Also have accrued 472 penalty yards on 46 infractions, which is 82nd in Division One. In terms of helping out the other team. So I think as long as Purdue can hold Iowa off the board, which I think certainly is possible, I think they'll be able to cover this spread here.
Yeah, John, do you have any thoughts? I mean, I think I'm sure. I hope your systems would yield that the Big Ten under is a thing. I hope at least one of them would
Absolutely.
yield that. Yeah,
Absolutely. And I think in this matchup, like Connor was saying, the ground games are going to be challenged to even make anything meaningful. The key to first downs is getting 3 or 4 yards on first down and making it manageable on second and third. And both these teams are not too good at that. And in my model, it does say that Iowa and Purdue are going to have trouble even making it to 100 rushing yards. When Purdue has averaged 2.5 to 3 yards per rush, they are 28-8 to the under. And then looking at Iowa here, when they rush for less than 100 yards, the under is 16-39. I'm sorry, well, over under 16-39. So it's 39-16 favoring the under.
yeah.
So if both teams don't get to 100 yards rushing, I would be shocked if this game even gets close to 40.
Yeah, I guess also, I want to lean that Purdue minus the points here, but the thought is that if we're assuming that these teams are going to struggle, that over a field goal spread might even be too much for Purdue to cover. I might be giving them too much credit. This game is at Purdue, so that you always have to factor the home field advantage. It is a noon game, so nothing too special. Those night games tend to be a little bit more exciting. I like Purdue, like maybe to just win straight up, but I mean there might not be any value in that pick. But I think I might like the under, and I don't know if I want to take a side on the spread. You know what I mean? Like I don't trust Iowa to cover this, but if I want to take the under, then I don't know if I want to trust Purdue either. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Yeah. So I might stick that under. Are you guys riding with that? The under minus 40, excuse me, the under 41.5 here?
Yeah, I agree with that. And then the in
Yeah.
game too, just in case somebody gets the opening kickoff and goes down the field and scores, even if it's 3 points, that could jump up to 43, 44, giving you a chance to get a better price. But
Mm-hmm.
at 41 and a half, I don't think this makes it to 40.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. And Connor, you're feeling the same way?
Yeah, I mean, been harping against Iowa. They can't score, so wouldn't make sense to change the mindset there at all.
Yeah. Yeah, so the Pickin six is massive on the Big Ten unders all year long and every time. Moving right along, we're just jumping from conference to conference. This is a night game. Clemson minus 3.5 against Notre Dame, over under 44. This is in South Bend. The Irish have struggled massively this year. They're 5-3 on the season, and they're 1-4 against the spread at home. In South Bend, no good. John, how are you feeling here?
Well, I honestly want to see Clemson lose. And I'm not a big Notre Dame fan, but I'm also not a big Clemson fan either. And the fact that they are listed as the fourth best team in the country, I got to wonder what kind of films the committee was watching, because Clemson was lucky to even get away with Syracuse, who's having a wonderful season. But Clemson is not an elite team that is going to end up in the top 10. I don't know how they would be in the SEC, for example. I don't even know if Clemson would be in the conversation if they were in the SEC.
Yeah, Clemson with Trevor Lawrence or Deshaun Watson, there's a conversation, but this current Clemson team doesn't belong. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, and I agree. The total is reflecting that too. When Trevor Lawrence was the quarterback, the totals were upper 50s to almost 70. This one's at 44 and a half. And I think the fact that it's a low total favors that Notre Dame defense, and they can control the pace of the play, control the clock. And they've been successful doing that now for the last 5 games. So after just a horrid start to the season, they kind of have righted the ship. And I think Notre Dame has a lot more momentum going for them coming into, or with Clemson coming into South Bend. I don't know why this line isn't pick 'em.
Yeah, I think they're giving Clemson almost too much credit here. I mean, yeah, I think it's going to be. I don't know. I think it might be. For some reason, I think it's going to be a pretty messy game. I don't know why, but maybe it's just like Clemson stuck away with a bunch, and Notre Dame just hasn't lived up to their ever-present preseason hype they always have, no matter what. I know a lot rides on this coach, the new coach coming in. Connor, how do you feel here?
I'm leaning Fighting Irish here. So I think, like as John said, they've got a bit more momentum here. I believe they came in as a number 5 team preseason, and then surely fell off like right after that. But I think gaining a little bit of momentum coming into this game, and it being at home against what at least I think is a bit shakier team in Clemson, not having that true star under center, and having some questions from the media, who's going to be the starting quarterback, Dabo Swinney kind of doubling down, sticking with DJ. I think that enough questions on the Tigers side. I'll be rocking with Notre Dame to cover.
Yeah, I don't mind Notre Dame to cover here. I'm just not a fan of either of these teams. I think that, and then look at the jersey I'm wearing, and I'm gonna have a conversation about bias. I think that there's bias that is deserved and bias that isn't. And I think that Clemson at least has done enough in their past history to deserve bias, but then we're also talking that why is there even bias at any point in time to pick the top teams in the country? You know what I mean? Like that brings up that conversation as well. As like why are we even talking about who deserves to be given a little bit of extra love at any point in time? That's a whole nother conversation we could get into. I think that you talk about the past resumes come way too much into into effect in this situation. I, for one, and we're going to talk about it a little bit, am almost even happy that Georgia is no longer the number one team in the country. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. But I don't. I completely agree. I don't believe that Clemson is a top 4 team in the country. I think that there's, you can. It's Tennessee. Was it Ohio State, Georgia, Clemson? Am I remembering that correctly? There is a lot of other teams. You could put TCU at the 4th spot if we're being honest. Like, I think that's
Tuscaloosa too. That probably would be favored by at least 7.5 if they played on neutral field against Clemson.
Yeah,
Michigan would be favored over them.
I mean, yeah. I think that the playoff itself, we you can talk about it as the Alabama Invitational. I think that they, always find a way to make a case to be in the national championship, or at least in the playoff conversation year in and year out. It's almost their game to lose when it comes to that. Yeah, I like bringing it back. I like Notre Dame. I don't like Notre Dame. I never have. We go back to the we go. This is for me personally. We go back to the this is for me 2012. I'm getting on my SEC soapbox. 2012 SEC championship, BCS era. Winner of Alabama, Georgia goes to the national championship. And boy, if we were 4 yards short of just going and steamrolling Notre Dame. I've always hated Notre Dame. But I'm going to ride with them this weekend. We're just going to move right along. I think, once again, consensus on Notre Dame.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, and we're going to speaking of Georgia, this game scares the crap out of me, and Connor knows I don't really give true picks for any game that they're involved in. I think that's, what a good fan does. I don't want to put any juju out there for the team, but I still am happy to talk about it. It's one of the biggest games of the weekend, so how could you not? UGA -8 against Tennessee, a now 1 versus 3 matchup over under 66, and they're playing at 3:30 in Athens. Connor, I'm going to go to you first.
I was pretty close to heading down to Athens for this game. But things ended up not working out. It'll still be a phenomenal football game this Saturday. I think a couple things here kind of jump out to me. There's only been 2 times this season that Georgia has allowed an opposing quarterback to hit the 60% completion mark. And I think it's going to be tough to limit Hendon, or not to have Hendon Hooker refrain from hitting at least 60% here. But then again, this is Stetson Bennett. This is a Georgia team that is significantly more experienced. So it makes it kind of tough for me here. But I think Georgia might have a fire lit under their ass, so to speak. I think in kind of lean here is Georgia to cover, but not completely sold on it. Could flop later in the week as we get closer to Saturday.
John, what are your thoughts? Because I'm very curious what the system, or if any system, what they have here.
Well, it's pretty rare that you have a number 1 ranked team as a more than 7-point underdog. And there's not much to grab in terms of betting intelligence from that fact, but it has happened more often than you would think. But Georgia is in one of my power systems here that you're going to bet on home favorites between 3.5 and 9.5 points. Home team is coming off 3 consecutive wins over conference foes. The road team, being Tennessee, is coming off a double-digit win over a conference foe. 63-15 straight up, 80% on the money line. 51-26 against the number for 67% winning bets. And a slight lean to the over here, 42-34 for 55%. I think this matchup really takes on the characteristic of a national championship game where if Georgia or Tennessee gets out to a multiple, 3-score margin in the second half, it kind of gets out of hand. But I just think, Tennessee's had a wonderful season. They were unranked before the season started. Where do you think where would you guys put this line before the season started? For me, I would put Georgia like -24.5.
Yeah, I will. Before this season started, And we got a little bit of as a Georgia fan, we got a little bit of a taste. And I was talking to Chad about this on last week's show. Is just for some reason, like it was when Joe Burrow's first season under the helm at LSU, they came down to Athens and we won. But you're like, that's gonna be something once they figure it out. Last year, Tennessee, I think, also came down to Athens. No, we went to Neyland
Yep.
last year, but we see Hendon Hooker was a quarterback last year, and they gave us an early scare with that. I would argue, I think that our defense, with the NFL talent that we had on our defense last year, we're like, we had to. They were one of the few teams to score double digits against us in the regular season last year, against the defense that we had. And you're like, once they figure it out, that's going to be something. You know what I mean? And here we are talking about this. However, Tennessee has had their own, the fans hype about themselves going into every season, but now they're actually fulfilling what they think about their own team. I think that preseason this line would have been easily double digits, might be even in the 20s. Vegas has handed us a lot of massive lines in conference this year, for one reason or another. I think it definitely would have been a higher total coming into the season. But now here we are. Yeah, I obviously I don't have and looking at this over under, I think this over under has way more to do with Tennessee than us. I think that there's going to be points scored by Tennessee, and we're just going to have to deal with it. It's about more how we react in this situation. We have to trust Stetson Bennett. We have to trust the offense to keep up, and just trust our defense to keep them out of the end zone. Obviously, I don't have an official play here. I think the over is in play. I think that I don't know. I'm rambling a lot, and I apologize, fellas. But what happens is George. We are slow to go in the majority of games that we play. Like you saw, we got out to it pretty early last week against Florida, but I feel like that's not usually our MO. We don't usually score on 3 back-to-back possessions like that. So we could see this number change throughout the game. I'm hoping maybe Tennessee scores first, and then if you're betting this, and you like Georgia, hope Tennessee scores first.
Absolutely.
Hope Tennessee scores first. Wait for this number to drop. If you want Georgia in this game, if not, then take Tennessee pre-flop.
And it's going to be volatile, as you said. A point total of 66. There is a subset of the system I just mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty outstanding. And if the total in the game is 65 or more points, it's 19-1 straight up, 16-3-1 for 84% against the spread. It's obviously supporting Georgia.
Wow.
So I like your take, 50% pre-flop of your normal bet size, and then, literally get on your knees and hope that Tennessee can score in that opening kickoff if they win the toss. So, that would be great. But I have seen an Ohio State game, believe it or not, and I forget who it was against. It was early in the year, but the opponent scored, and Ohio State, before the score, the live in-game bet was -15. The opponent scored, and the line went up on Ohio State. It went to 16.5.
Didn't that happen against? Am I crazy? Didn't that happen against Notre Dame this year?
I think it was Notre Dame.
Yeah, I think it was Ohio State, Notre Dame. The line moved. Yeah, Notre Dame scored, but yet the line in favor of Ohio State, the margin went up. I do remember that.
It was pretty amazing.
Yeah, Connor. Any more thoughts here? Are you taking the Vols or are you taking the Dogs?
I'm taking the Dogs. It'll be an interesting matchup against 2 oldest quarterbacks in the SEC, and I'm excited for it overall, betting wise or otherwise.
Yeah, I'm very excited. It was just I think it's one of the premier games of the weekend, and here is the other premier college football game of the weekend: Alabama -13.5 against LSU. LSU currently is the number 1 team in the West, mind you. Over under 56.5 half. Who'd I go to? I'm gonna go to John with this one first.
All right, just pulling up the date I have here. You have a 7-1 Alabama team with a defense that really has not been anywhere close to the additions of previous years with Alabama and Nick Saban. But when Saban is historic with games where he's coming off a bad stretch where the defense hasn't played well. They had the game at Tennessee, obviously, that Tennessee earned. They beat them, but there were 17 penalties called against Alabama in that game, and Saban, from those points on, if you look analytically at the results, it's defense first. And this is going to be a slugfest, and this game is at 7 o'clock, I believe, right?
Yeah, it's definitely a night game. Yeah, it's a night game in Baton Rouge too. So LSU is a
That's
13-point underdog in Baton Rouge, which is massive for them.
Yep. The fans will be well prepared.
Prepared, yeah.
And it's similar to Penn State with the whiteout, and Penn State on my power ratings, that they're the best home field advantage in football, and especially when it's a whiteout at night. The second is LSU, and not far behind Penn State, but it becomes basically like a 6-point home field advantage for LSU in this game. And as much as you think Alabama, it's Nick Saban, they're just going to steamroll these guys because it's that time of the year. LSU is a magical team on a magical season, and I wouldn't stand in front of them. I mean, it's kind of like taking the Houston Astros and thinking that they're going to bounce back against that train called the Philadelphia Phillies. It's very similar.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Connor, how do we feel?
This could be a very exciting quarterback duel here in this game. I think number of factors kind of jump out at me. LSU at home, LSU in Baton Rouge, it being a night game, as you all have said. And I think the penalties have been really biting Alabama in the ass so far this season. I think it could possibly be difficult for them to hold a 2-touchdown lead against this Tigers team. So the gut tells me to go with the Tigers.
Yeah. I think
so.
Yeah, I think that there is definitely whatever, and this just depends on what kind of pizzas you're buying. But there's definitely a pizza money bet value in the LSU plus 410 on the money line for the reasons that we just talked about. I think obviously you have systems that factor in that home field, night game advantage, and LSU is one of those. Obviously, and Bama just proved it. Just what was it, 2 weeks ago now, that they walked into Tennessee in Neyland Stadium. That wasn't even a night game. That was a 3:30 start. So now we're even talking about a night game in Baton Rouge. Like you said, those fans will be properly lubricated and loosey-goosey and ready to go for the game. I don't know. It's tough to say. I think you got to roll with LSU, but it makes me nervous because it's obviously I feel like the large public money is going to be on, oh my gosh, yeah, LSU plus 13.5 at home. It's there's the Nick Saban factor, just like Bill Belichick. You always have to factor those two things in. It's just there's a lot to unpack here with this game. There's one thing for certain, it's going to be fantastic, but I got to take LSU. I'd be, whether they, winning the game is a different story, but covering is within reach for them. Obviously we would love to see Bama lose 2 games in a regular season, which I don't even remember the last time that happened. If we're being honest, I don't think Nick Saban was ever even the head coach the last time that happened.
It's happened
John,
3 times.
What?
That with 2 losses.
Yeah, has Nick Saban been the coach for any season that has had 2 regular season losses?
3 times since 2000.
Okay.
Whenever that was, 2005.
Yeah.
8. I think it's 08 actually.
Yeah, that sounds right. 08. Yeah, it's I'm very excited. I got to take LSU, and I think we all agree. And there's a pizza money bet involved with that money line. You guys ready to shift gears to NFL? This is going to be a little shorter segment of the games that I brought to the table for us to discuss, but obviously there's more room at the end. Phillies, we still got about 30 minutes till the Phillies get going, so we got some time. We're going to kick it right off. Vikings, the Commanders, over under 43.5. I'm going to go to Connor here first.
I think for me, it's tough to go against the red hot Eagles. I think they have.
Oh, did I say the Eagles? I'm losing my mind. I'm thinking about Philly still. The Vikings and the Commanders. I'm losing my mind. I'm thinking about Philadelphia. I'm thinking about the next game. Ignore me. Vikings minus 3.5 against the Commanders, over under 43.5. This game is in Washington. Let's try it again.
Yeah, you got me confused. I was pulling up my notes, didn't have the screen up, so I was rolling with what you were saying, not making us look any better here. But,
well, I went to the Minnesota-Washington game, so I'm guilty too.
So here we are. We're Minnesota. Vikings, Commanders, over under 43.5. We're here.
I find this one tough to get a handle on personally. I think there's definitely potential for the Vikings to do something here. I believe they're on a 2-game winning streak. If I remember correctly, I personally have a bit of trouble finding any reason to back the Commanders. I don't think they're not a fan of the offense. I think the defense has kind of tailed off from what it's been the last couple seasons, even though they may have something here with Taylor Heineke. But yeah, I think I'm leaning Vikings. No really rhyme or reason, but this trust in the Washington team is kind of what does it for me here.
John, how do you feel now that we know what game we're talking about?
Yeah, the Vikings there in the NFC North. The only team they've lost to is the Philadelphia Eagles, and that was on the road in Week 2. And if you listen to the media at all, there's a lot of skepticism surrounding, is this Vikings team really a 6-1 team? Well, in analyzing how this team is being run, they don't make mistakes. They are in the top part of the league in penalties, fewest penalty yards per game, and they don't turn the ball over. And they've had one turnover or none in their last 5 games. The most they had was 3, and that was in the loss to the Eagles. So, I like their run defense too. They've kept, I think it's 5 straight opponents under 100 yards. One of those was Chicago. One of those was the Saints, which last I checked do a lot of running. So they're real to me. If you're an Eagles fan, I don't think you really want to see Minnesota in the playoffs or again before that. Just be glad they're not in the same division. On the Washington side of the ledger, I find it absolutely amazing that the division that was called the NFC least last year now doesn't have one team with a losing record in it. And Washington won 3 in a row now after a 4-game losing streak. And it is an unfortunate thing with the owner and what's going on there. And they retained Bank of America to help sell the team. But it's a positive, and it's probably going to be a positive for Snyder to move on to another type of career and get away from it, because he really couldn't control himself. He wanted to be hands-on too much, and RG3 was the quarterback a few years ago, and he got wrecked by playing that playoff game with a broken leg. Some of the decisions are just mind-blowing, but that whole division now is heading in the right direction all at the same time. Philly's undefeated, but they a game and a half behind is the Cowboys, and Washington is they're actually tied with the 49ers for the last and final playoff berth right now. Wow. So it's the NFL, and parity is what dominates it. So it's not surprising that we have all these teams competing for these playoff spots already in Week 9.
Yeah, I'm excited for this one. The Vikings also just picked up T.J. Hawkinson from the Lions.
Yep.
Which is massive for their passing attack. My goodness. Now, obviously Adam Thielen was a great supporting cast for Justin Jefferson, but now you have somebody like Hawkinson in the mix. That's massive. He's a huge pickup, I think. And I think I think that it's unfortunate. I think the situation of Washington as far as quarterbacks is kind of unfortunate because you talk about ownership and you talk about money, right? One of the two quarterbacks in Washington is being paid a crap ton of money to win football games, and it's not Taylor Heineke, unfortunately. He's just doing it. He's winning despite what he's being, paid. He's making that a backup salary, but playing like a starter, in my opinion, right now.
I agree.
But it's like I know that there's always pressure from that higher up to where you start the guy we paid a bunch of money to, right? I feel like honestly Heineke never did anything to lose this job to Carson Wentz, other than Carson Wentz having the bigger dollar sign next to his name. I'm not sure who they plan to start. I don't know if is Wentz not healthy. It's going to be Heineke, right?
Yeah,
I don't
that's
remember.
correct.
So yeah, it's going to be Heineke again. So it's going to be a good game overall. But I want to give this edge to the Vikings just because 6-1. You wonder why they're 6-1. I mean, you said they've played almost flawless ball as of late, and when you talk about week 2, that's Monday Night Football in Philadelphia.
Yep.
Just you gotta chalk that up. It kind of is what it is. I like the Vikings here. Now we could talk about the Eagles because they play tomorrow night. Eagles minus 14 against the Texans, over under 45. I'm gonna go John first.
Well, the enthusiasm clearly is on the Eagles because hypothetically, if the Phillies win, excuse me, if they win tonight, they can win the World Series tomorrow night, simultaneously playing at the same time that the Eagles are playing. And that's pretty nuts.
That's in Texas. Okay, yeah, they're in Houston because that would be outrageous if the Eagles had a home game tomorrow night.
I'm probably not going to be playing this game, and I'll tell you why. One of the things I've learned from being in the Circa and the Super Contest at Westgate, and before that it was the Hilton, is have downloaded into a massive database every single pick that's ever been made by any person that's been in it. One of the simple things I learned early on was that the Circa puts out preseason bets for every single game, all 17 weeks. So you have a benchmark of where the betting community is for all those games. So preseason, the Eagles were favored by 5.5 over these Texans. It's now up to 14 and a half. In the contest last year, with these plays, I actually hit 69% fading that move. So in other words, I'm just saying a little caution here with Houston, but the momentum and the positive mojo between the Phillies and the Eagles cannot be underestimated. They're feeding off of each other, and it's pretty cool to see. Even if you're not an Eagle fan, you have to appreciate what these franchises are doing. But I would be cautious laying the 14 just because of what I just said. It's more of a situation where the Texans are not awful, and they can cover this 14-point spread. So I just would be cautious to take the Eagles and just blindly think they're going to blow them out.
Yeah, I think that. I mean, 82% of the bets are on the Eagles right now, for all the reasons we just talked about. Connor, but I mentioned the Giants fan. Connor, how do you feel?
I mean, I'm just rooting for the fans in Philadelphia to burn the city down, however that comes. I think an Eagles win, Phillies win could certainly make that happen. Not the biggest fan of this game. I do kind of lean Texans to cover. I believe they are since the beginning of last season as a home underdog. They're 6-5 against the spread. Nothing too crazy there, but 2 touchdowns is a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Even for a team that's firing on all cylinders, the last undefeated team in the NFL. If I had to do anything, it'd be a lean, but probably like John will be staying away from this game, maybe go towards the player props.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I just want to know what you guys think. I do want to float one question about this game. Obviously, like the possible lean is maybe the Texans, but the Texans covered us 14. Do we see them? I mean, I might be just asking an obvious question. Do we see them keep pace, or do we think this is a backdoor cover situation just because it's a big spread? I would give that to anybody.
I think it could be similar to what Buffalo and Green Bay had, where Green Bay basically backdoored it there with that 10.5 hook. And that's what concerns me here with this. The Eagles could be up 31-10, and suddenly you get the touchdown, and if it's 14.5, you're cooked.
Yeah.
So that's another thing I just caution people to not be overzealous. As you said, Tyler, 82% is a red flag. And when there's that many people betting on the same team, that's irrational exuberance, as the Federal Reserve Chairman back in the day, Alan Greenspan, said before the NASDAQ crash of 2000. So it's a game to just lay off, in my opinion. And if you do anything, you play it in game. If you like the Eagles, then hope the Texans come out fired up and catching the Eagles maybe just a hair bit flat, maybe watching the World Series on the sideline instead of focusing on the game. That would be pretty funny, though, if you saw, Jalen Hurts or, Brown looking at his cell phone to see what the score is.
Yeah. I would have to imagine that that they're gonna that there's gonna be live updates throughout that in the stadium, without a doubt, and that's also something that's just fun to have happen. You know what I mean? When you're at one game, but the whole stadium is well aware of what's going on elsewhere. I think that's just awesome.
And the Texan fans are probably gonna, if the Phillies think about it, if the Phillies get a lead, they're gonna boo that score.
Absolutely.
I mean, the scheduling of this is just unimaginable. You could have Houston Astros, Philadelphia Phillies, Philly Eagles, Houston Texans. I mean, it's just unbelievable.
Yeah, it's unreal. I'd be interested to. I mean, I'm sure the stat will somehow come up tomorrow night if this has happened in history, where two cities in the same sport, like, would this ever happen? You know what I mean? Obviously, like, going deep into the World Series finishes up around this time, and then you still have. But then again, there have no. Regular Thursday night football has only become a thing recently. So it's, I don't know if it's ever been a thing or not, but it'd be interesting to find out. So I'm
interested. Play around with that tomorrow and no, but I would have to say my guess would be 0.
Yeah.
The statistical probability of this happening is probably better. You probably have a better chance of winning the Powerball.
Yeah. You mean that 1.2 billion that's going off tonight?
Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. So, yeah, man, I like it. We got this game right here. Buccaneers -3 against the Rams, over under 42. There's a lot to unpack with this game. This is the last game that I had written, and then if we want to talk about anything else after, that's fine. I know that John has plenty of, a lot of stuff to do tonight. So I'm going to go to Connor here first with the Bucs Rams. I know there's a lot going on here with this one.
Yeah. A lot going on in my head. Like, I'm looking at a bunch of betting trends coming into this matchup. The Rams are 2-7 against the spread in their last 9. They're 9-1 against the spread in their last 10 games against the Buccaneers. The Rams are 6-0 straight up in their last 6 in Tampa Bay. And the Buccaneers are 0-6 against the spread in their last 6, 0-5 against the spread in their last 5 home games, and 0-8 straight up in their last 8 week 9 games. I mean, given all those stats, tells you, or most of them, makes you want to lean the Rams, but really haven't been the Rams that won the Super Bowl last year. And they've not been able to protect Matt Stafford as well as you would like for a quarterback who's I'd imagine he's over the hump of 30 by now. And Tampa does do a pretty good job of getting at the quarterback, breaking down that pocket. I do want, maybe Brady comes out fired up after the announcement of the defense. Who knows? But I think Tampa at home probably lean towards the Buccaneers here. Not a game that's too much of a favorite on my card for this weekend.
Yeah, John, how do you favor? I was going to say the I don't know, a quarterback divorces, and I don't know how that stat lines up, but how do you feel about this game?
Well, it's crazy. I'm got the baseball game on in the background. They're doing the national anthem. I swear to God, I have goosebumps. I can't even believe that this is going on. But you have what's interesting about this matchup is you have the two lowest scoring offenses in the NFC, and you have the Atlanta Falcons leading the NFC South. So
Hmm.
it's just mind blowing how bad Tampa Bay has underperformed this year. Um, I have to say, unfortunately, the divorce is we're probably going to see Tom Brady for another season or two after this, um, and that's unfortunate because I don't see it ending well. I know it's easy for us to say that when you win a Super Bowl and you're 40 some years old, you should call it a day and
Hmm.
be grateful that you have two legs to walk on and that you're not maimed from the wear and tear of the NFL. But um, I do wish he would retire for the legacy purpose because it's not looking good right now. The Rams, scoring. I think they've scored 118 points, which is just incredibly unimaginable. I mean, it's as unimaginable as seeing the Phillies in the World Series with a lead.
Yeah.
It's just so unlikely because that team won. It's the reigning Super Bowl champion, and they're
Hmm.
terrible. So again, this is a game I think I just lay off. If anything, I would lean towards the over because sooner or later, there's too much talent on these teams, and they will score points. And they're both capable of putting up 40, but they just haven't done it.
Yeah. I think that it's a lot of it's I don't know. Some of it comes to like it's a Stafford. I don't know if it's underperformance or maybe it's so I know that the Rams historically are one of the highest like they pass the ball at a insane percentage of the time throughout the game, right? And you think about it, like to just you throw the ball more, you run the risk of throwing more interceptions. Matt Stafford had the most interceptions in the league, I believe, last year, if I'm not mistaken. And it's just maybe it's catching up to him. Maybe he's getting unlucky. It is what it is. You're right. It's like these teams were, you know, these were two of the best teams in the league last year. You know what I mean? And it's unfortunate, like we said, what happened with Tom Brady. Like I said, this is another game that I just wanted to gauge your guys' thoughts. I'm also nervous about this game. I don't know what to think about it. I might lay off as well. And as much as if you guys, I don't have any more thoughts there. Like I said, I also can hear the national anthem, so I will not hold John hostage or myself hostage any longer. Any closing thoughts for you guys before we go on out of here?
Nothing for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just think the college football, those games that have the big totals that we talked about, you use the in-game strategy to your
Hmm.
advantage and exploit it. It's going to feel weird if you've never done it because if your team that you bet on and the opponent is up 14-0, and I'm telling you to go put pizza money and add to your bet, you're going to think that I'm out of my mind. But if you trust it and do it disciplined, it becomes a lot of fun. It really does.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate you hopping on and hope to have you
Absolutely.
around more in the future. I want to remind everybody to make sure they like, comment, and subscribe. Help us out a lot. We just hit 200 subscribers here on YouTube. And follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Pickin Winners. And of course, John's Twitter is in the link in the description. Also, check him out. He writes and puts out videos for many different sources, and we appreciate having you on, Connor.
My
Always
pleasure.
good to Always good to have you around, buddy. But I hope that everybody has a happy and healthy and safe weekend of gambling. We out.